Hey there, and welcome to a short webinar, seminar, whatever you want to call it, on strength and conditioning, how it supports you and your training, what to do, and answering some of the common reasons that people give that sort of to say why they don't want to do strength and conditioning. First of all, to introduce myself though, my name's Lucy. I've met some of you at club sessions. I moved up to York in March. So I've been to a few club sessions since then. I'm the one that's not very good at swimming but not very good at counting the lengths on the Wednesday swim. I'm a triathlon coach and a personal trainer specialising in strength and endurance. I have been working as that since about 2013. I'm a BTF level 3 coach, Training Peaks level 2 coach, mental health and exercise coach. I've worked with various different organisations, Run Mummy Run, Oro, I was Virgin's lead on endurance, and I was head coach with 3 different clubs back down south. In terms of my kind of approach to coaching and training, my philosophy is very much making sure that the training works for you. So there's no point in having the perfect plan if it doesn't fit into your life and work with you and add value to your life. And I'm also really kind of keen on the fact or promote the fact that you can't just have a perfect plan. A plan is useless if we haven't got the brain working with us as well. So the brain can work with us to get things going better, but it can also work against us in terms of not having the motivation or not having the self-confidence. So I do a lot of work on the mindset side of things as well. And if you're doing longer distance on the stomach as well, you've got to train the stomach. In terms of my own stuff, not really relevant, but I've worked at raced age group worlds and Europeans at Olympic and middle distance. I've done more than a sensible number of Ironman. And I'm also, again, not sensibly, getting more into ultra distance cycle racing. So I'm happy to talk about any of that over a beer sometime. In terms of, and maybe most importantly, I'm going to start working with York Tri Club from November, doing the strength and conditioning sessions, which I'll be talking to you more about in a second. So in terms of what we're going to cover in this, in today, why is strength and conditioning useful? What should we be doing? Which is what I'll be teaching in the club sessions. A little bit on when and where, a few specifics for the over 35s and for women, and then going through that list that people give of why they don't want to do strength and conditioning and hopefully coming up with some answers to help you think, yes, you can. Sorry, gone the wrong way there. Right. In terms of why we do strength and conditioning, for me, it falls into 2 main, very overlapping groups. So first of all, reducing injury. We all have imbalances. We're born with imbalances. You know, you'll have one hip bone's bigger than the other hip bone, whatever. There's going to be natural inborn differences in your body, but also they'll get more, they'll come up more over time. So for example, you might have twisted your ankle 10 years ago. You didn't properly rehab it at the time. It felt fine, but you didn't completely finish rehabbing it. You've got reduced mobility in that ankle on that side, meaning that you haven't got that full range of motion at the ankle, which can then go all the way up the chain. You might not engage your glutes so well on that side, and you might end up with a knee injury that's come from that ankle injury 10 years ago that you've completely forgotten about. So we have these imbalances. So we work through our strength and conditioning to work out what those imbalances are and to start to overcome them. So if you're taking, say, 160 steps per minute times 60 minutes, I can't do the maths in my head, however many steps that is, if you've got that imbalance, that's going to be compounded over time. So we're trying to undo those imbalances. It helps with fatigue resistance. So if you train the muscle, it's going to become more resistant to fatigue, which means we're not going to have our form breaking down so much over time, which again can help reduce the chance of injury. I'm getting all my increases and decreases mixed up. We do work in strength and conditioning sessions, or certainly in my sessions, to increase our range of motion. So for example, if you spend, as most of us do, spend most of your time seated, you'll end up with a sort of closed hip angle. We need to be able to have full movement at the hip in your running, for example. So we'll work on increasing that range of motion, which not only helps you in your running in terms of your form, but it's going to decrease the risk of injury because you're moving more as your body is designed to. And then we'll be doing some prehab stuff. So prehab is light rehab, but pre the rehab being needed. So preventing the injuries from occurring. So either knowing that as human beings and as runners and triathletes, we're going to be vulnerable to certain things because the muscle groups we're using, the way that we're using our body. So most of us don't have good engagement in our glutes, which then means we're not supporting our knees, not supporting our hips. So we'll do lots of glute work to try and increase the strength, but also the ability to engage our glutes. But also you might have something specific to you. You know from past history that you always get injured in a certain place. So you need to be doing that prehab to prevent it occurring. The most common or the strongest indicator of an injury happening is prior injury in that place. So all of that means we're reducing our chance of injury, meaning we're happier, because most triathletes I know are not very happy when they're injured, but also we're improving our consistency. So if we're injured less, we can train more consistently. And consistency is by far the fastest way, or the most important way to get faster. And when I say faster, you may not worry about going faster, but we could translate that into going for less effort at the same speed. So you go out and you just enjoy it more because you're not having to work so hard to do what you're doing. People always ask for the magic session, to help them go faster, and there is no magic session. The thing that will help you go faster by a mile, I'll say it again, is consistency. And as I say, reducing injury is a big part of that. Our strength and conditioning also helps us to improve our efficiency. So again, that fatigue resistance, if we're more fatigue resistant because we've developed the muscles through the strength and conditioning, we're going to be moving more efficiently. Our form isn't breaking down. We will obviously be increasing our power and strength, which then means we can recruit a small number of muscles to do the job, so we're becoming more efficient. And we're improving our neuromuscular coordination. So that's a big word big words for saying our brain tells our body what to do and our body does what the brain is saying. So if you go back to, the old thing we used to do as kids where I can't even do it, pat your head, circle your stomach or whatever, or vice versa. We don't need to do that in triathlon, but we need to have good brain-body coordination. We need, when our brain says do this, our body to do it and do it in the way that we said. And the more that we can do that, the easier it is for us to do it and the more effectively we do it. So when our brain says, put my foot down there, the foot goes where I told it to go, the more efficient we become. And with that increased efficiency, again, we become either faster or we put in less effort to go at the same speed. So for me, those are kind of the main groupings of reasons for doing strength and conditioning. All of that can translate. Here's some stats just from Scientific Triathlon. 6 to 7% improvement in running economy, 7% in a 5-minute time trial, almost 5% improvement in a 5-minute running time trial. Sorry, the first one was cycling. And that was after, I can't remember the details, but a fairly short strength and conditioning program. That was just based on the actual kind of improvements from that program. That's not taking into account the fact that if those people then reduced their chance of injury over time, that too would mean that their training became more effective. To put those numbers in context, when you look at, if you've got your Nike Vaporflies, or any of those kind of technical running shoes that are meant to magically make us all go faster, they generally give you a sort of 3 to 4% increase in efficiency. So here we're talking significantly higher percentages than that. This can mean minutes, off your 5K run time, whatever. We can make real improvements here. But it's not just about performance. So there's other wider benefits of your strength and conditioning. First of all, in terms of body composition. So if we're training our body, we're building up the muscle in our body. And if we're doing it consistently, we're probably also burning fat at the same time, partly because if we're doing big muscle exercises, things like squats that use lots of muscles, that's also going to burn lots of calories. And if we're not in a calorie surplus, then that will lead to fat reduction or burning the fat. But also because the more muscle we have in our body, the more metabolically active we are. So even when we're sitting here doing absolutely nothing, if we've got more muscle, we're burning through the calories more. Now, I'm not saying that so much from a sort of aesthetic perspective, but in terms of, again, on the bike or even running, that power to weight. So we might weigh the same, muscle weighs more than fat, we might weigh a bit more, but we have far more power from the muscle that we've got there to achieve our goals. We're going to have a reduced chance of injury because that stronger muscle is able to move our mass around much more effectively. The more muscle within reason we have to do that. But also that change in body composition is really important for our health. So things like type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, all of these are coming from if we can reduce our fat in our body, then that's helping to reduce the likelihood of those sort of illnesses occurring. And of course, there's the body image. I strongly want people to love their bodies for what their bodies can do, not what they look like and not what they look like compared to somebody else. But I appreciate most of us have sort of body image goals. And if we can improve the muscle composition in our body, then we can be working towards those. In terms of that, people really often worry about doing strength training because they're worried about getting too muscly. It depends what training you're doing, but in terms of the sort of training that I'm talking about, you would really struggle to put on, visible a lot more muscle. We might be toning the muscle, or we might be more aware of the muscle because we're burning the fat on top of it, but we're not talking about turning you into Schwarzenegger here. This is, to do proper big muscle building, takes a lot of dedication, a lot of training, and a massive calorie surplus to do it. So what we're talking about here is just burning some fat, replacing it with muscle, not massively pumping you up with muscle. In terms of those other wider benefits of strength and conditioning, in terms of just general lifestyle, particularly as we get older, but at any age, if we have we have more muscle in our body, within reason again, we're more able to support our body, we can move around more. If we're doing that mobility and stability, we're going to be moving better. And particularly as we get older, we lose muscle as we get older. So we have to work harder to maintain that muscle. And that becomes important just for things like, being able to get yourself out of bed, getting yourself off the floor if you fall or things. It might feel a long way off, but, I'm sure we've all had relatives who have had issues like that. So the more we work on our muscle, on our strength now, the more that's going to last with us. There's also just a really cool thing of just feeling stronger as you realize you can do things that you couldn't do before. As you walk down the road going, yep, I can feel my body working with me. That can just make you feel a lot better. Sort of related to that is posture as well. So in the sessions we'll be working, to get rid of this kind of hunched over position that we so often have. We spend all our time typing on our phones, bent over, driving, whatever. So we're going to work to open out the chest. We're going to give ourselves more space to breathe, to be able to stand taller, open our chest out more. Which is important to avoid injury, just generally, particularly in swimming as well, but just generally in life. But also there's loads of research linking posture and self-confidence. If you walk around like this, you start to kind of have that hiding away from the world. And if you're able to own that posture, then you can walk around and it directly translates into greater self-confidence. There's increasing research as well, and it's all very kind of new at the moment, but increasing research linking resistance training with improved brain health. So things like improved cognition, a reduction in loss of memory, potentially even linking it to a reduction or a slowing of Alzheimer's. So loads of benefits of that strengthening and conditioning that goes beyond just your sort of triathlon performance. And loads of studies just showing kind of generally how it can help you live longer. So there was one on balance. They followed a group, I can't remember, I think it was for about 20 years or something, and looked at what age these people died based on, or linking it through to whether they could stand on one leg for a minute or whatever it was. So increased balance can help reduce our mortality or reduce the age at which, increase the age at which we die at. I'm getting myself so confused with my double negatives here, apologies. So yeah, better balance, you live longer. Simply said, because if you fall over, and particularly if you then sort of break something, that then massively escalates, other issues come through. So the longer that we can stay without falling, and if we don't train balance, we lose it quickly. There was also a study looking at our ability to sit and rise from the floor without using our hands. Again, they tracked that with a group over however many years and found that there was a strong correlation between people who get up off the floor without using their hands and the age at which they died. Negative correlation. I'm doing it again. And hand grip strength can also be used as a predictor of strokes and heart attacks. So loads of different kind of funny little ways of measuring our body's ability to move, to stabilize itself, which are linked to living longer, and not so much living longer for the sake of it, but living healthily. Okay, so the club sessions. Club sessions will be on Thursday, 7 p.m. at the York Sports Centre. I'm not going to say loads more about it now because we'll probably sort of tweak some of the details, but we'll be doing at least kicking off with a block of sessions. So you sign up for the block so I can take you through a sort of progressive block. So we're not having to start back at the beginning each time, but we'll see how we go as we go through the sessions. In terms of what we'll be including in the sessions, and this is what I include in, or what I would recommend. So even if you can't make the sessions, this is what I would recommend you include in your sessions. We'll be massively focusing on the lower body. For a triathlete, a massive proportion of what you're doing is the lower body. Plus running is always the highest risk of injury, and running comes at the end after the bike. So you're even more fatigued by the time you get there. So we want to injury proof your body. Not basically, but one of the biggest risks is when we get onto the run. So we want to make sure you're strong on the bike, so then you're strong when you get onto the run. We'll do some upper body, but the upper body tends to be a lot more about stability and mobility. So to be able to move those shoulders rather than strengthening per se. So in terms of mobility, things we'll be looking at will be your hips. So there's a picture of Mo Farah. We want to be able to get that leg back behind us into true hip extension. So maintaining our neutral pelvis rather than tipping the water out the front. You will hear me talk lots about tipping the water out the front and neutral pelvis as we go through. So maintaining your neutral pelvis, being able to get that leg back behind us into true hip extension. So we need that mobility at the hips to allow us to do that. We want upper body so we can maintain, so we can move, get that power in when we're running, when we're swimming. So upper body mobility, ankles, shoulders as well for our swimming. So various different things, but we're working on the mobility. Then we work on the stability. So yes, we want mobility at the joints and ability to move at the joints, but we also want stability, particularly at certain joints. So for example, as your foot hits the ground, is your hip stable, or does it drop down on one side, or does the knee cave in? So we need to work on the glutes, lots and lots of glute work. So many of the injuries that I'll see is because people's glutes aren't engaging. Again, because we spend so much time seated, we end up with tight hips, we struggle to engage our glutes. So we're doing things like bridges, band walks, we work on your calves. There's lots of calf raises in my sessions because I know that nobody does them unless I do them with them. Foot strength, core strength, so all those different areas where we need that stability. And then there's the strength stuff. So in my sessions, and what I would recommend if you're able, if you're not coming to my sessions, but if you're doing it by yourself, is compound exercises. So things like squats, rather than sitting on the leg extension machine and just working one muscle at a time. They have their place, but what we'll be doing is working lots of muscle groups together, working on putting it all together. So we're learning how to move our body as one, and we're working lots of groups at the same time. So we're achieving more in one exercise. We'll work the front side of your body, the anterior chain, so things like squats and lunges. We'll work the posterior chain, the back side of your body. You might have been told by your physio that you've got a weak posterior chain. We'll be working on that. So your hamstrings, things like raises, deadlifts, kettlebell swings, if we're allowed to bring the kettlebells down from the upstairs room. We'll be doing around 3 to 4 sets. It's going to depend because we need to make it work, as a group, we're all in there together, but 3 to 4 sets, 8 to 12 reps. That's again what I would recommend you're doing if you're not coming to these sessions, rather than sort of long circuits and things. Calves, we do more reps on those, I'm afraid. We'll generally be working to almost to failure. So that means if you do those 12 reps, by the time you get to the end of that 12th rep, you want to say, I could do 1 or 2 more. My technique's still good, but I don't think I could do much more than that. We will be using things like the squat racks, not all the time. We've got free weights as well. If you've never used a squat rack before, don't worry, I'm there with you. The whole point of this session is to get you used to using the gym. So if you've used the gym before, but you're a bit kind of unconfident in the weights room, this is 100% for you. If you've never been in the weights room before, this is 100% for you. If you are a really, really experienced lifter, by all means come along, and you might be wanting to learn a bit more. You maybe do lots of chest and not so much of the legs. So by all means come along, but we're going to be starting at the beginning with the basics and progressing. So as long as you're happy with that, absolutely come along. So yeah, we'll be working those we want to be loading it up. And this is the brilliant side of being in a gym, which is harder to do at home because you won't have such heavy weights at home. We want to get to the point where you feel like, yep, I could do 1 or 2 reps, but not much more than that. We're not going to do all of that in week 1. We're going to build it up slowly. And we want our training to be progressive. So this is another problem that we have when we train at home and we've just got a few weights at home. We find it hard to keep progressing each week. Each time we want to ask our body to do a little bit more than we did the time before, so it's developing as we go. We'll do a bit of power work in there as well, not so much. We will also be doing plyometrics, which is not big jumping up on the big boxes, like we're just doing hopping on the spot, but so that we're strengthening our bones, we're getting that power and ability to absorb power through our feet. Strengthening the bones, I said that. Balance, we already talked about, really, really important. A, for your longevity. B, as runners, running is a one-legged activity. The more efficient, the more we can balance on one foot while the other foot's in the air, the more efficient we come and the less chance we have of tripping over something stupid and losing our balance and falling. We'll work on our posture, already talked about that, and we'll work on our breathing. We think, well, what's she on about? I know how to breathe. Most of us do not know how to breathe effectively, so we'll be working on making sure we are breathing effectively. Few quick things for those of you who are over 35, so sort of masters and onwards. We need to make sure we're particularly paying attention to the Achilles, the hamstring, the calves and the bones. We'll be covering all of that in these sessions. In theory, you would want to go a bit heavier as well, maybe more into that 5 reps range. Probably won't do that in this first block of sessions at least. I want to make sure everybody's happy before we go. When you go down the reps, you also increase the weight. So let's make sure we're confident on that first. But just a reminder to everybody, we often get, as we get older, we go, oh, I'll just do the kind of ploddy stuff now. We want to keep some speed in there. We want to keep some plyo and some explosive work in there. And we need to make sure we make more time for warm-ups, we make more time for recovery, and we have more recovery days between harder sessions. And we definitely want to make sure we're working more on our mobility because life has had longer to have gunked up all our body. Issues specific to females, and I do always make a point of trying to make sure, or making sure that I include issues specific to females where relevant, because so much of the sports industry and the sports nutrition industry, most of the research has been done on men, and women are different. We have different bodies. This is changing. We're getting more and more specific guidance now, but it's worth kind of just highlighting a few things specifically for women because it doesn't generally get covered. So most women, or not most women, but some women will have a menstrual cycle. That has an impact on your training, your recovery, your mood, your energy. And you need to be aware of that. So start tracking your cycle. So you know your good weeks, you know your bad weeks. It's not as simple as just, I'm on my period right now. But so you know when you can get the most out of yourself, and you know when you should be resting. Schedule your rest week. I'd always recommend you have a rest week every third or fourth week. Schedule your rest week for when your body needs more rest. That doesn't mean you do nothing that week, but it just means you're not putting your hard intensity, long sessions in there. Be aware of the changes in your body throughout your cycle. So whether that's that you need to adapt your training, your recovery, or your diet, be aware of the different sort of things going on and how you might want to work to optimize that. I can talk about this until the cows come home. So please do grab me after a training session or whatever if you want to talk about this in more detail. Ditto menopause or perimenopause. So can occur from different ages and different people, but say sort of early 40s onwards, can be earlier or later than that. We will tend to see a loss in muscle mass, weaker bones and fat gain, particularly around the midsection around this time. And so there's loads of things we can address in our strength training here. And I would always say, don't wait until it happens, anything. This is the prehab idea. Let's address these things before they become an issue rather than waiting until they become an issue. So again, strength work, again, working in that lower rep range. So again, potentially going to that sort of 5x5 type reps, making sure we're doing the plyo, making sure we're maintaining some high intensity in our training, and particularly focusing on the pelvic floor. Work on it before you need to. You know what I mean? What, when, how. So if you come to the club sessions, that's taken care of. Thursday, 7 o'clock. We're at the York Sports Centre. Check my clubhouse in case I've said that wrong. I think it's the centre, not the village. But if you're not coming to the club sessions, the most important thing is when works for you. People always say, should I do it before swimming, after swimming, before this, after that? I can tell you, based on the science, the best time to do it in your training calendar, but that is irrelevant if it's not going to work for you. For me, I go swimming and I go to the gym afterwards, or I used to when I lived down south and I had a swim and gym near me. But because that worked better because they were both in the same building, I could do them together. So do it when it works for you, when it works in your routine. The one thing I would say is try not to run on tired legs. So try not to run after a strength session. For me, I even think I don't want to run the day after that strength session. So I'll, do my organize my training week so that I am running on fresh legs, because again, the run is the one where we're most likely to get injured. And if our legs are tired, our form's most likely to be breaking down there. You can work out in the gym, you can work out at home. I've got loads of clients. I have a weekly training club, which people are all on Zoom doing. So long as you're looking to make sure you're getting that overload, getting towards that, I don't know how many more reps I could do. And there's lots of ways we can achieve that even without weight. So we can train body weight, we can use bands, we can increase the time under tension, we can do more single leg work. So you definitely can do it, but the gym is brilliant for having a range of weights there. In terms of how often, depends. Are you training for an Ironman? Do you just want to get, a little bit faster or enjoy it for park run or whatever? If you're doing Ironman, I'd say at least twice a week, ideally, but obviously you've got a lot of training when you're doing Ironman. Bear in mind, NHS guidelines say to do strength training twice a week. So we should all be doing it twice a week for our general health. How long? Again, depends on you, how you're going to fit it in. I'd say 2 times 30 minutes, 2 times 45 minutes, ideal sort of minimum. Up to 60. The club session is obviously going to be an hour-long session because it's more time effective to do it like that. You might also want to get in a 30-minute session in the week if you could, but don't let perfection stop you doing something. So something is always better than nothing. If you're doing nothing right now, 1 30-minute session is a massive improvement on that. So don't aim for it has to be this, otherwise it's not worth doing. Something is better than nothing. In terms of the arguments that we often kind of use against it, so people will say they don't have time. If you literally don't have time, then I would say take some time out of your other training. If you're training for an Ironman, and think how many hundreds of hours you're going to do training for that Ironman, and if you don't make it to the start line, or you don't make it to the finish line, or you make it to the finish line, but it really, really isn't pretty, and you're spending, time in the injury tent as you're going, surely it's better to take maybe 10-15 minutes out of your week to do some strength training. Take it out of that, the training time, your existing training time, for some strength and conditioning. So if you really can't change anything else in your week to make more time, I would say reduce some of your existing training time to make space for the strength and conditioning. Make sure you're doing effective stuff, but then, could you do some balance work while you're brushing your teeth? Could you do a set of calf raises? I do calf raises for about 1.5 minutes. Each leg, so that's 3 minutes. First thing in the morning when you get up, last thing at night when you go to bed. If you only did the 2 out of the 3 sets, I can't remember if I told you the magic formula, we are aiming to do 3 sets of 25 to 30 single leg calf raises 3 times a week. That's what we should all be doing if we run. Don't start off on that if you're not there yet, but that's where we're trying to get to. So if you did 1 in the morning, 1 set in the morning, 1 set in the evening, you're getting there. Only 3 times a week. Could you do some glute bridges while you're watching TV? Think creatively how to fit some stuff in if you literally haven't got time to add in an extra session into your day. People worry about putting on muscle. As I say, unless you're in a big calorie surplus, unless you're really deliberately training it, we're not going to be gaining, big, visible, massive bodybuilder muscle. We might be swapping some fat for some muscle. We might see the muscle sort of toning up as it becomes more visible under, as the fat's sort of going. But, we're not talking massive change here. In terms of if you don't know what to do, come along to the club sessions, and I'll also tell you about online sessions I've got as well. If you're worried about getting injured, good technique, so I'll be coaching you on good technique, but also making sure you listen to your body. When I say only do this many reps, only do that many reps. Listen to your body. Don't look at what everybody else is doing. Everybody's individual. So see how it feels. We want to get to that point of pushing, so we're getting near to failure, but not to the point of getting to failure, and not in the first week. You need time for your body to build up and get used to these things. Also, prioritize recovery. So recovery, like I say, don't go straight out for a run straight afterwards, but make sure you're giving your body time to recover. Our body recovers when we're asleep, so making sure we're getting sufficient sleep. Our body needs protein to recover. We should be aiming for at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. Very few people I know are anywhere near that. So aiming to increase your protein intake, particularly just after a session. Bring a protein shake with you to the club session. Have it straight after. You're trying to get your protein in fairly soon after exercise to have the biggest impact. Sort of related to that, people worry about it getting in the way of their other training. So you've got those sore legs the day after, and then you're like, oh, I can't go for my run today. As I say, think about scheduling your week. So I'll always try and get the swim in or something like that, or a turbo session after the gym session, so there's not so much risk of injury there. But also do allow for the fact that when you first start strength training, you will be feeling a bit sore. So try and think, can I have a bit of a downtime in my running, other training around that time? So you build in time, but you're not always going to feel like that. When you first start strength training, it's going to hurt more. That will get easier. People don't want to go to the gym and do it. I hope that, it's a club session, so we can all kind of motivate each other and it's a bit less scary going in there. But if you don't want to go to the gym, absolutely do it at home, but make sure you do it. If you haven't got kit, like I said, you can achieve a lot with body weight. You might want to get some bands and stuff, but you don't need massive loads of kit. If you don't like it, brilliant that you've at least acknowledged it, because people will often use all those excuses I've just been through above, when actually the base thing is that they don't like it. So at least you know what the issue there is. If you are saying I don't like it, then challenge yourself. Why? Write down literally on a piece of paper all the reasons you don't like it, and then go through and find the answers to all of those. Sometimes we kind of go, I don't like it because I'm scared of the gym. Why am I scared of the gym? I'm not sure, because I don't know where the changing rooms are, because I don't know if everybody on the gym floor is going to be really mean and whatever. And we haven't even really voiced what those fears are. And then we go, okay, well, I don't know where the changing rooms are. I just need to go there and find it out. That's not going to be that hard. I'm a bit scared of going on the gym floor. So first time you go, get an induction from one of the PTs or gym instructors. See if you can go with a friend the first time. Come to the York Tri Club training session. Break down those fears or worries or whatever they are and work them all through. Start with something small. You don't have to do the whole thing straight off. Do something with a friend, join a class. There's loads of ways of sort of breaking down those things. And also our body prioritizes short term over long term, or our mind sort of. So, I need to go out and go if I want to go to the gym, it's raining outside. I don't want to go out in the rain. And my whole thing will be like, I just don't want to go out. It's cold outside. Completely forgetting that the getting there is a very small part. Once I'm there, I'll absolutely love it. I'll feel better afterwards, but our body just focuses, our mind focuses on that most immediate. I don't want to do this bit. So think long term, think what you're trying to achieve long term, think how you'll feel afterwards. And again, as I already said, don't go for what has to be ideal. Don't say, I have to do this, otherwise I'm not going to do it. Think about what's possible. If you can't do that full 60-minute session, if you can't come to the club session, start with your calf raises, start with your glute bridge. If you don't know how to do a glute bridge, look it up or start with something else. You don't have to do everything. Start with a few things that you do know what to do. And once you've done a few, it's always easier to build up from there. If you can't make the club sessions, then I've got online strength and conditioning sessions Every Thursday morning, I do a live session on Zoom, and then it's recorded for Facebook afterwards. So if you can't make the 7 a.m. on a Thursday morning, you can do it, catch up on the Facebook session. It's suitable for all levels. Some people use weights, some people don't use weights, absolutely up to you. It's a 60-minute session, but you could break it into two 30-minute sessions. So we start off with mobility and stability for about 30 minutes, and then you could do the strength session another time. There's a free trial offer on my website, so feelfitwithlucy.co.uk/club-feelfit. I will be bringing out a club offer. We're just kind of finalizing the details of how I can do that through the club. But if you do that free trial and then just drop me an email when you're done that, and then we can work out how to apply the club offer for you. Or do the club sessions and come to these, although they're both on Thursday. That's probably not ideal. And then if you're looking for training plans, I write personalized training plans. I write just off the shelf training plans. So I've got half marathon, marathon and triathlon base plans, and there'll be some triathlon, sprint and Olympic plans coming. So give me a shout if you're interested in them. If you've got any other questions, I will hopefully see you at training sessions. I'll hopefully see you at this club strength and conditioning session, or drop me a message. I'm not very good. I don't check my Facebook that's connected to the club Facebook account that much. So you can find me on @FeelFitWithLucy on Facebook or Instagram, message me there, or that was my email address, feelfitwithlucy@gmail.com. So drop me a message there. I look forward to seeing you in a strength and conditioning session soon. Take care, guys.